Yo, what is going on everyone? This is Oais and I welcome you all back to my sports channel, and today I'm going to be predicting the 2018 AFL ladder. Now this is very similar to the ladder I did earlier on. There's only a few slight changes, but I want to make sure I get this ladder out there. So this is the ladder I'm going to lock in to be my official ladder prediction for 2018, and at the end of the season it'll be really nice to see how I go. And yeah, let's just get right into the let's get right into the video. So in 18th position I've got North Melbourne. I think they'll win somewhere around 3 to 5 games. Now with them, they're a rebuilding team. They're just a really bad team. They did nothing in the trade period really. They don't have much good young talent really. Well, they do have a few good young players, but not a whole lot. I just don't see North Melbourne really doing much this year. They'll have their moments, as every team does, but I just can't really see them achieving anything this year. In 17th place, I have got the Gold Coast Suns. Now, Gold Coast, I think, well, in their first 11 rounds, I'm pretty sure, they actually do not have a single home game at Metricon Stadium due to the Commonwealth Games. But I think they can turn North Queensland into a bit of a fortress for them, basically because no other team in the AFL really knows how to play in that sort of heat up here. And Gold Coast, they play a game every single week. Every single year in Cairns. So I think Gold Coast will be a lot more used to the heat up there, and I think they'll be able to steal a few wins up in North Queensland. So I've got them 17th with just maybe winning 3 to 5 games in that range. But I can't expect Gold Coast to be doing too much this year, as they're a very young team, and they've got to start improving soon, otherwise they should consider relocating. And I reckon they shouldn't relocate to Tasmania, they should relocate to North Queensland. In 16th I have the Fremantle Dockers. Just an absolute trash team. Last year, well, in 2016 they finished 4-18, and they were just absolutely completely useless in all honesty. In 2017 they looked like they were going to turn it around, but then after maybe 8 or 9 rounds they were just the same trash team they were in 2016. I think they'll have a pretty similar season to 2016. They don't have very many good young players. They've got a few star players like Nat Fyfe and all of them, but other than that, I just can't really see Fremantle winning too many games, and I reckon they'll have quite a few big losses again this season. So in 15th place I have Carlton. Now I probably would have put them a little bit higher, but I just can't see them being better than any other teams. If you ask me, are Carlton better than Fremantle, Gold Coast and North Melbourne, I would say yes, but every other team that's above them I would say no. I really couldn't say they're better than them. So Carlton, they have Sam Docherty has done his ACL, so he's out for the season. They lost Bryce Gibbs during the trade period. Now obviously their younger players are obviously going to improve. They finished 16th last year, so this is still an improvement from 16th at least. But I just don't think Carlton will quite be able to break out of the bottom 4 yet. They might upset a team or two. I reckon they'll win 6 or 7 games, something around that mark. But I don't think there'll be too much special for Carlton this season, so just another rebuilding year for them. In 14th place I have Collingwood. I just think they're going to continue to slide under Buckley. Buckley just doesn't know what he's doing in the coach's box. Collingwood, they have a good midfield, a nice deep midfield. However, they do not have a defence or a forward line. What I've noticed with Collingwood, they can get in their forward line quite a lot, but they never are able to score from it. I've seen a lot of the games they lost in 2017 was because their forwards just couldn't get a winning score on the board. They don't take the opportunities, and I just think they just don't have enough firepower up forward or down back to really be a threat. So I think Collingwood will win maybe 7 or 8 games and will finish in 14th. I think Buckley will be sacked in this season, and once Buckley is sacked, I'll guarantee you Collingwood will get better. So in 13th place, I have the Brisbane Lions. Now Brisbane, I expect them to have a pretty decent jump this season. They've got some pretty good young talent, emerging, and I think they're going to improve quite a bit this season. Up to 13th, I think they'll do better than all the teams that below them. They're nowhere near ready for finals yet, still at least 2 to 3 years away, but some exciting times for Brisbane fans, and as long as they can keep all their players, they should be right to finally be able to be competitive again. So I think Brisbane will be a lot better. They'll be 13th, and they'll cause a few upsets this year. I reckon 8 wins for them at least. So it should be a pretty decent season for Brisbane. In 12th place, I have Hawthorn. So that's the same position they finished last year. I think they'll have a pretty similar season. Hawthorn, they have had so many star players leave in such a short period of time. You're never going to stay at the top when you have all your superstar players leaving so quickly. So Hawthorn, they have some decent young players still. They still have some good premiership players in their team. So they're not going to be down the bottom, obviously. But I just can't see them being good enough to make the top 8. They'll just be a mid-tier team, really. They might contend for the 8 at some point, but I just can't really see them getting in. In 11th place, I have Essendon. I'm going to get a heap of hate for this, obviously, like I do always on my prediction videos. But I think Essendon overachieved last year. I think they're by far the most overrated team in the AFL. I think they'll have a more difficult fixture this year. I haven't really looked at their fixture. I don't think they have an easy fixture, so I expect Essendon to miss the 8 this season. Now, just because I have them outside the 8 this season doesn't mean I don't think they can continue to rise. They will get back into finals in the next year or 2, but this year I just don't think they'll be able to do it. I think there'll be a year of them not being in the finals, and then they'll probably return to finals in a year or 2. So Essendon, I don't think they're that great, well, at least not this year. So I think 11th spot is about right for them. In 10th place, I have the Port Adelaide Power. Again, idiots think they're going to be in the top 4 and all of this. Going to get a heap of hate in the comments for this. But Port Adelaide, they just remind me of North Melbourne, the 2016 North Melbourne, right? I wouldn't surprise me if Port actually have like a really good start to the season. I reckon Port, they'll smash the bad teams. They'll smash teams like Gold Coast, Fremantle, North Melbourne, Carlton. They'll smash them. But when they go up against top 8 teams, they'll either get smashed or lose. I think that'll be the difference in them making the 8 or not. I just think their new recruits, Tom Rockcliffe, he's a pretty decent player. I just don't think he's going to be an absolute superstar for them. I think he's past his best. Jack Watts, Stephen Motlop, they're just not like superstar recruits. I feel like they just went and got quantity over quality. Depth won't be a problem for them, obviously, but with all the new players they've got, but I don't think they have got any more quality players. And if they do make the finals, I feel like they'll be a team that just gets knocked out in the first round. That's just my opinion on them. In 9th place, I have the West Coast Eagles. Now, people seem to be writing them off, but I'm not. I've still got them only just missing the 8. But I feel like they're still a pretty decent team. They're getting Nick Naitanui back. They've got arguably the best full forward in the competition, Josh Kennedy. They have a powerful forward line. They have an alright defense. Their midfield isn't the worst. They have a lot of injured ruckmen at the moment, but they'll come back eventually. They're not that bad of a team. I've seen people put them as low as 15th. Most people putting them about 12th or 13th, but they can still make the finals, I think. I just think there's quite a few teams that are better than them. I'd be surprised if West Coast make it. are like heaps higher than this, but I won't be surprised if West Coast sneak into a 7th or 8th this season. So yeah, West Coast, I think everyone's writing them off, but I'm not buying into it. In 8th place, I have St Kilda. Now, a lot of people don't think St Kilda are going to make the 8 because they lost Nick Riewoldt and all that. You know, St Kilda, I think they're ready to make the 8. They've got a pretty good team now that they've built, and I just can feel when teams that have been rebuilding for a long time. I can just feel when they're gonna make the 8. I can just feel this year St Kilda are gonna make it. I don't think they'll make a huge impact in the finals, but I think they can make the finals, and they're only going to get better. So St Kilda, I think, will be in the top 8 this year. In 7th, I have the Western Bulldogs. So obviously they won the premiership in 2016, and then had a premiership hangover in 2017 and missed the 8. I think the only reason why they missed the 8 last year was because of that hangover. They probably just weren't as hungry. They didn't look like themselves at all really last year. And I think this year they'll be better. They were never like a top 4 team or anything. They're not like the most amazing team in the AFL, but I think they're good enough to be a top 8 team. So that's why I've got them in 7th. I think they'll, bounce back from the hangover and at least be back in the 8 for this season. A lot of people are thinking they're going to continue to drop and all of that, but nah, they're good enough to be in the top 8. In 6th place, I have Geelong. Now Geelong, I know they've gained Gary Ablett, but Gary Ablett, he's well past his use-by date. I know Gary Ablett can still probably put in quite a few good performances. I'm sure Gary Ablett can still get 25 to 30 disposals, at least in half the games. He might go forward a bit more often, and I'm sure if he does go forward, I'm sure he'll have some games where he kicks 3 to 4 goals. He'll still be able to contribute to Geelong, but not the way everyone else thinks, and not the way he will be able not the way he used to be able to in Geelong. If they lose 2 of their big 3, is Dangerfield, Ablett and Selwood. Obviously, if they lose 2 of them, I think they're really going to struggle. If they lose 1, they probably could still do alright, but if they lose 2, and especially all of them, they're like not a top 8 team. I think they rely quite a lot on those players, and they still have a pretty decent forward line. Their forward line isn't that bad. They've got a good midfield, but their back line they've lost Lonergan and Mackie, who were important players for them. I think their backline will be their main weakness this year. But other than that, they're still a pretty solid team and should finish in the top 8, but I don't think they're a premiership sort of team with their list. I don't think they can win a premiership with that list, and I think they'll finish about 6th. I can't really see them making the top 4. In 5th place, I have the Melbourne Demons. Now, Melbourne, they choked last year. They should have made the finals. And then they lost to Collingwood. Then West Coast were able to beat Adelaide and just sneak in above them. So it was a very painful weekend for Melbourne supporters, especially since now it's been 11 seasons in a row that they have missed the top 8. But I think surely in season number 12 the drought will end. Now, normally there's a surprise in the top 4, but there won't be any surprises this year from me, or at least me predicting them. I always predict a surprise in the top 4. But Melbourne, I think, would most likely be that surprise in the top 4 if there was a surprise top 4 team. But Melbourne, I think they'll finish 5th. They're definitely good enough to get close to the top 4 at least. They should make the finals this year. I just cannot see them missing the finals. I could not see them missing the finals last year, in all honesty, but they still managed to do it. But this year, surely they can't do it twice in a row. They should make it this year. So in 4th, I have the GWS Giants. Now, a lot of people are thinking, they're going to win the flag and all that, but yeah, I know have had a lot of injury. They did have a lot of injuries last year, which probably affected them quite a bit. But they have that much talent on their list, it shouldn't affect them too much. But I just don't think they're quite good enough to win a premiership. They're definitely good enough to be in the top four. They could be third or fourth on the ladder possibly, but I just think they're more of a team that will make the preliminary finals then get knocked out by a better team, and I just don't think they're quite good enough to really challenge for the premiership. They will always be a bit of a threat, but I just don't think they'll be a real contender. In third, I have the Sydney Swans. Now, Sydney, they started the season off 0-6 last year, and then only lost 2 more games for the season. We were all quite shocked when they were 0-6. I did not expect that to happen, but they were able to bounce back from it, and only finished 6th on the ladder, which cost them any chance for a premiership because they got knocked out in the second round by Geelong. I don't know whether them finishing 6th is an indication of how good they actually are, or whether they just went off to a really bad start and are actually, a team that is deserving of a top 4 spot. But I think they are the sort of team that should be in the top 4. They tend to start seasons off slowly. If they start this season off really well, they're going to have a really good season. I'll guarantee you that. But if they start slowly, I'm sure they'll still find a way to make the top 8. They will make the top 8, and quite depending on how bad the start is. If it's a bad start, but if it's not like disastrous like it was last year, I think they can still make the top 4. So Sydney are definitely a premiership contender. In second place, I have the Adelaide Crows. So basically, they've gained Bryce Gibbs from the trade period. They also lost Jake Lever and Charlie Cameron. Now, I feel like those losses for them won't be too damaging to them because they already had a really good backline and a pretty good forward line as well. They're stacked in those 2 positions. Their main weakness is the midfield, but the midfield isn't even that bad either. So, yeah, I think they can definitely get back to the grand final at least. And they're definitely still a flat contender. They will be for the next couple of years at least. So yeah, second for mine, for the Crows. In first place, for me, I have the Richmond Tigers, and no bias here. I know I'm a Richmond supporter, but I really do think they're going to finish on top. So I just found out that Miami Heat beat the Los Angeles Lakers, which is great for me in the NBA, that is. But anyway, I think Richmond, they have some really good players, like superstar players such as Dustin Martin, Alex Rance, the best defender in the game. They've got Trent Cotchin, Jack Riewoldt, all of those, and then they have a really good experienced core too, like what's his name, Basher Hooley, Shane Edwards, those sorts of guys, Brandon Ellis. They're very deep in all of their positions pretty much. They have a very deep midfield. Anthony Miles, he is struggling to get a game. He would walk into pretty much every team in the AFL. I reckon he could get a game for at least 14 teams weekly and walk into the team. So he's very unlucky. Sam Lloyd also does really well in the reserves for Richmond, who would walk into quite a few teams, but unfortunately he just can't get in because the forward line's too stacked. And just the pressure Richmond put on other teams, it's just very hard to match. I feel like teams are still going to struggle to match it this season. So that's why I've got Richmond in first. The back line is really solid as well. A very underrated player, Nick Vlosten. I think he's just an absolute superstar. He will be All Australian this year, I reckon. Because everyone looks at Alex Rance as the massive superstar, but David Asprey does a good job. I think David Asprey makes Alex Rance a better player, and Nick Vlosten, he does a lot more than what people think, and Basher Hooley's also really good too. So, yeah, that's why I think Richmond will finish first. Now I'm not gonna do the finals. That's because you can't exactly predict the exact positions of the teams. Like I could predict the exact same top 8 and the exact same top 4, but the positions could be a little bit different. But I'm just going to tip a premier, the team to win the premiership. Who's going to be runners up? I think Richmond will win the premiership. So hashtag back to back there, and I think the runners up will be the Sydney Swans. Maybe either Sydney or Adelaide. I can't even decide. It's just too hard to predict this season. So Sydney, I'm just going to go off them because it's not often you see the exact same two teams in the grand final 2 years in a row. So yeah, I'd say Sydney runners up, and the Brownlow medal. I think Dustin Martin will win back-to-back Brownlow medals. I think Josh Kennedy will win the Common medal quite comfortably. I reckon he'll kick about 10 to 15 goals more than the person who comes in second. And Norm Smith medal, I reckon that'll go to, I'll just say just something random. I'll just go with Daniel Rioli to win the Norm Smith. And the NAB Rising Star, pretty sure, I don't know if Alex Witherden is still eligible for it. So I think you have to play like less than 10 games to be eligible in your second season. It'll be Alex Witherden if he's eligible, but if not, I'll go with Jack Graham. Just picking all the Richmond players. Nah. But anyway, this season is by far the hardest season to predict. I know there's something in these predictions that I'm going to get really badly wrong, as you saw in the 2017 ladder prediction reaction. There was some I got really badly wrong, and some I did really well on. I'm pretty good at predicting the ladder at the end of the season. I don't predict the exact spot teams are going to finish in, but I can predict a roundabout. I predicted North Melbourne's full, Hawthorn's full, and all of that, but I had St Kilda way too high. Same with Fremantle, and Port and Essendon were a bit low on my ladder as well. But everything else was almost spot on for me, except for Melbourne being in the 8. So yeah. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment for more content. Follow me on Instagram, linked to that in the description. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my other channels, my main channel, Oais, my extras channel, and AFL Community News. Links to those are in the description. I hope you've had a good day, and remember, do not ever dog the boys.